And hello, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Monday to you. Welcome to the Scoreboard. Oh boy, it's good to be back, sitting down at the desk here in the new Studio P, WSIC studio up here in Purple Heart Homes. We're here. Now, I got to tell you, on this Monday, unfortunately, we are not live, so we can't take your phone calls. I know. I apologize. We got a phone call in a little bit on last week's show, but today, this episode was recorded at an earlier time. So all of the information is current, or at least as current as it can be. I talked about this a little bit last week. When you pre-record a sports show, when you pre-record anything for that matter, there's the chance that by time the episode actually airs, some of the news might be old news. Hopefully that doesn't happen with the program here today, and everything that you're hearing is applicable at 5 o'clock when you hear the program. I know one thing that's definitely not going to change, and that is the update on high school football playoffs. We are going to go over the 1A, 2A, 3A, and 4A brackets, let you know who is advancing to round number 4. If you remember when we talked last week, there were still quite a few programs within our area that were fighting to not only get to the Final Four here, but also play for a state championship. Now, how it'll go is this Friday, it'll be the 4th round of the playoffs. The winners move on to the regional games, which will be the week after. And then on the 20th is when our state championship games will start taking place. So you only need to win a few more games to get that state championship. So we are going to talk about high school football. We're also going to dive into college football. Oh man. What a mess, right? Rivalry weekend, great games all around. There were some upsets thrown in there. I mean, who really thought Michigan was going to beat Ohio State for the 4th consecutive time? I didn't think so. I really thought Ohio State was going to solidify themselves in the Big Ten there. Unfortunately, that's not what happened. You have some other games that were pretty interesting as well. We're going to go over them. Now, I don't have the college football rankings for you just yet, the college football playoff rankings. All I have are the AP rankings. So we're going to base our playoff discussion off of the AP rankings. Now, reminder to you, coming up this weekend, Friday and Saturday, you have your conference championship games. And a lot of these games are going to determine who does and who does not go to the playoffs. It's going to be a crazy week, man. I'm telling you, when you come up this Friday and Saturday with the conference championship games, then the week after we got a little bit of a break as you have the Army-Navy game. And then bowl games are going to be right around the corner, man. I'm telling you, there are a few teams that I think have clinched their way into the college football playoff, the 12-team playoff, if you will, as what it's being now. So we'll talk about that as well as some projections on who we think might be competition, who might win a conference championship to sneak their way into the playoffs. There's a lot to consider here. So we are going to talk about that a little bit later on in the program. We got to get into the Panthers and the NFL. I'll tell you what, I'm not out. I'm not off on Bryce Young just yet. Give him time. The kid is still young. Now, when we talk about Bryce Young, obviously we think about last year and the 2 wins that the Panthers have. You think about getting benched earlier this year. Then you also have to consider the fact that Bryce Young still only 23 years old. Don't quit just yet on Bryce Young. The Panthers played the Buccaneers last night. It was the afternoon game, one of 3 afternoon games. So there was definitely a little bit more of a spotlight on the Panthers and Bryce Young than there normally is for like a 1 o'clock game per se. But this was a really good game and a really competitive game. I know there's some controversy with, did Adam Thielen catch it? Was it a touchdown? And I got to say, I don't know. I feel like I was never shown an angle to where I could say, no, he held on to that, or there's the bobble, it's right there. I just don't know. We looked at some of the angles this morning on Good Morning LKN. If you were able to catch me on that show earlier this morning, we went over it, and I basically said what I'm going to say here is we were never shown an angle, and you got to stick with what it was called on the field sometimes because there's just not enough evidence to overturn it. And I think that's kind of the situation that the Panthers found themselves in with that incompletion / touchdown pass to Adam Thielen early in the game. We have some college basketball updates for you, some new rankings. Remember, UConn, they dropped a whole bunch of spots after these losses that they have been suffering recently. Man, I did not expect for UConn to lose. What did they lose? 3 games, I believe, is what they ended up losing. Whew, man. So we'll talk a little bit about that. They're on the AP poll. They've dropped now to 25. They're the 25th team in the nation at 5-3. Man, I didn't expect that. You're coming off of back-to-back championships, and things don't look good to start the season. Also, North Carolina dropping a few spots down to 20th in the rankings. Houston's lost some spots as well. But man, a 23-place fall for UConn. They went from 2nd to 25th. Oh boy, that is a fall from grace. We also want to give you an update on the NHL and NBA seasons as those are underway. The hockey season in full force. We have the Four Nation Face-Off coming up in about a month from now. A little bit over a month from now. It's going to be the first ever Four Nation Face-Off. Canada, Finland, Sweden, USA on a best-on-best tournament. That's going to be a lot of fun. Now, I don't know how many people are putting this on their calendar as a appointment viewing. But in my opinion, it will be appointment viewing. We haven't seen best on best for countries in quite some time now. The good news is 2026, so not next year, but the year after, when we get to the Winter Olympics, we will have best on best in the Olympics with the NHL players going to the Olympics. So that's going to be fun. We'll talk about that a little bit later. We might not have time for it today with some of the things that we have to discuss, but just putting that on your mind, the Four Nation Face-Off that's coming up here in early to mid-February. We're going to start the program. We already started the program, actually. But our first topic of discussion today is going to be high school football. And we are coming up on that first commercial break of the program. So, ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. We're going to talk about the 1A, 2A, 3A, and 4A football playoffs for the high school scene. Then we'll get into some other sports. It's basically a football Monday. That's how we've been doing it recently. Football Mondays, as we talk about high school, college, and professional football. We'll squeeze in what else we can, when we can. Don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. We are back after this. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Segment 2 here on the Scoreboard on this Monday, a football Monday, if you will, as we're going to be going over high school, college, and professional football updates from the weekend. Friday night lights, you had your Saturday slate. You also had a Friday slate of college football games, so it was kind of scattered all over the place. And then obviously on Sunday, 1 o'clock all the way to 11 o'clock, you had professional football. And I'll tell you what, Sunday night football, gorgeous. Now, it could have been a more competitive game, but when you look at the game and you see highlights of it, it's, man, that is football weather, as Buffalo saw quite a bit of snow during the game last night. Obviously, that would benefit the Bills considering they were playing San Francisco. So we'll talk a little bit about the NFL slate later on in the program. Right now, we're going to get into the high school football playoffs, starting with the 1A bracket. Now, I will say in the 1A bracket, we've lost pretty much everybody that's within our listening area. Yeah, I know it's unfortunate, but we haven't had many teams within our listening area in these 1A playoffs, but I still want to let you know what's going on. As we get into the fourth round of the playoffs, which are coming up on Friday, the number 1 seed is the Mount Airy High School. They were victorious yet again on Friday as they beat Starmount High School 31-23, pushing them into round number 4. Well, they'll be taking on Corvian Community High School. Yes, the 5 seed beat the 4 seed Eastern Randolph on Friday. Final score in that one was 27-14. You have some more low seeds advancing throughout these 1A bracket. Number 3, Murphy High School beat number 11, Robbinsville High School. And number 2, Mountain Heritage High School beat East Wilkes High School. Neither of those games were crazy out of hand, but Murphy High School, one that I wanted to highlight here, they were down at halftime, was Murphy, to the 11 seed. So the 3 seed was losing at halftime to the 11 seed. And then all of a sudden, Murphy puts up 21 points in the third quarter, and they never looked back after that. So Murphy High School getting the win. And for the 2 seed, Mountain Heritage High School, it was a pretty clean 38-14 victory. So your matchups in the fourth round are going to be the 1 seed Mount Airy taking on number 5 Corvian Community High School, and number 3 Murphy High School plays number 2 Mountain Heritage. In the 2A bracket, we have quite a bit of jumbling up of things. Now, we do have one program that was playing on Friday in the 2A bracket that was in our listening area, and that is Community School of Davidson. We've talked about them quite a bit. CSD is their abbreviations, a very popular way to call them. I'm familiar with them because of my time at Pine Lake High School, Pine Lake Prep, where they were our rivals throughout pretty much all sports. But Community School of Davidson, CSD, they are the 10 seed. They played number 2, Shelby High School, and they really didn't stand all that much of a chance, honestly. 35-7 was the final score in this one. CSD putting up that 7 points in the fourth quarter to not get shut out. But the 2 seed, Shelby High School, moving on to round number 4. Their opponent is going to be Monroe High School. Yes, the 3 seed beat number 11 West Stokes by a final score of 48-21. Monroe scored in every quarter. They had 2 touchdowns per quarter up until the fourth quarter, by the way, where they only scored 1 touchdown, but a very dominating win for the 3 seed Monroe High School over West Stokes. Those schools, Monroe and Shelby, will be meeting up this coming Friday. Now, if you remember, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. The 1 seed in the 2A bracket has been eliminated for quite some time. It was number 17, East Rutherford High School, who beat the 1 seed. Their opponent was number 9, the Brevard Blue Devils, Brevard High School. You kind of saw what we expected from East Rutherford in these playoffs during that game against Brevard High School. After dethroning the 1 seed 27-26, East Rutherford drops their game to the 9 seed Brevard High School 42-6. Yeah, it wasn't the most competitive game out there, but congratulations on a very good season for East Rutherford High School. Nobody expected that. They beat the 1 seed Reedsville, and I don't know how many people thought that was going to happen. I mean, I thought Reedsville was going to be a contender for the state championship this year. Turns out that's why you play the football games, because upsets like this tend to happen. So moving on here, it's number 9 Brevard High School with the 42-6 win. They move on to round 4. Their opponent is going to be number 13, Forest Hills High School. Forest Hills High School beat Salisbury High School 38-31. This was a little bit of an upset here as the 13 seed took down the 5 seed. Yeah, 13 beat a 5. So the 2A has kind of been a little wonky at times. Things are a little bit more straightforward on the other side of the bracket where you have number 3 Monroe playing number 2 Shelby. But you know what? You got to love some of the upsets in some of these schools that are able to go into a playoff game where they probably look at it and say, we're not as good as this team. We shouldn't beat this team. But then you play the game and things happen. Some things go your way and you end up getting the win. So congratulations to all those schools. The 2A 4th round matchups, Brevard High School and Forest Hills High School, a 9 and a 13, play each other. And number 3, Monroe High School plays number 2, Shelby. Moving into the 3A bracket, once again, not that many schools within our listening area still alive in these playoffs, but in the 3A, we do want to talk about Hickory High School. Hickory has been a top dog in the 3A bracket for a little bit now. They won the state championship last year. They draw the 3 seed in the playoffs this year. They beat conference rival Statesville High School 42-7 in the second round, and their third round matchup was against number 11 Crest High School. This was some game. No defense in this game whatsoever. None. The final score was 48-63. That's 111 combined points between those two programs. But it was the number 3 seed Hickory High School getting the win over Crest. Final score 63-48. So the 3 seed Hickory moves on to round 4. Their opponent is going to be number 10, North Lincoln High School. The 10 seed beat the 15 seed Ashbrook High School in the third round by a final score of 20-10. A reminder, Ashbrook, they knocked out number 2 South Point in round number 2. So North Lincoln beats Ashbrook 20-10. They will face off against number 3, Hickory High School, and the defending 3A state champions. The 1 seed has gone down in the 3A bracket, and in dramatic fashion, might I add. Maybe not dramatic out on the field, but when you look at the details of the game, it gets a little bit more interesting. Number 1, Irwin High School, who went into the playoffs with only 1 loss on their schedule, played number 8, West Charlotte. The Lions also going into that game with a pretty good regular season, only losing 2 games on the year. The West Charlotte, the 8 seed, they win this game 58-0. Yes, you heard me correctly. 58-0 was the final score in this third round matchup between the 1 seed and the 8 seed. Not something you see often with a 1 seed getting shut out so early in the playoffs. And for a 1 seed, the third round, that's an early out, man. That is an early out. So congratulations to West Charlotte for upsetting Irwin High School 58-0. Their opponent is number 5, Dudley High School, who beat Robinson High School, the number 4 seed, by a final score of 20-7 on Friday. So your matchups in the 3A bracket are as followed. Number 8, West Charlotte plays number 5, Dudley High School. Number 3, Hickory High School plays number 10, North Lincoln. It is worth noting that in the east side of the bracket, going into this 4th round, we have a number 30 seed advancing. Yeah, you heard me correctly. J.H. Rose High School is a 30 seed in these playoffs, and they have beaten all of their opponents so far. They went into the playoffs with a losing record, and now here they are in the 4th round of the playoffs. They'll be playing 71st High School, the 71st Falcons, on Friday. That's a 30 versus a 2. Just a little note that you definitely should have. Moving on to the 4A and the big schools, the 1 seed Grimsley High School moves on after beating Charlotte Catholic 42-14. And number 5, Huff High School shuts out Mallard Creek 34-0. The 5 seed beating the 13 seed to move on to the 4th round. That'll be a number 1 versus a number 5 in that 4th round. On the other side of the bracket, Mooresville High School played East Forsyth High School. The final score in this one, 30-5 East Forsyth with a comeback win. They were down 17-7 early in this one, and they end up pulling off the 35-30 victory. Mooresville High School, another disappointing end to the season as they lose in round number 3. So your 4A matchups are number 1, Grimsley High School versus number 5, Huff High School. Number 3, East Forsyth versus number 2, Weddington High School. We're going to go to our second commercial break of the day. We're at the halfway point, ladies and gentlemen. When we return, we're going to talk a little NFL football before we get into college football. Don't go anywhere. We're back after this. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Scoreboard, segment number 3 here on the program today. We are going to go over some college football from the weekend. Yeah, college football. It was rivalry weekend, and it did not disappoint. We had so many good games, including a Friday night 8 overtime thriller between Georgia and Georgia Tech. I mean, oh my goodness, what a game. What more do you want in a college football game? Well, maybe you wanted them to beat the record, which is 9 overtimes. Penn State was involved in that game. Happened a few years ago. It didn't happen, though. I'm sorry, but we got an 8 overtime game. I think this is where you put the obligatory college football overtime is better than the NFL overtime. Definitely, 100%, not even a question. Anyway, some of these games from the weekend were really interesting, including the ones on Friday. Boise State High School. I'm used to talking about the high school scene, as you realize. We just finished talking about high school football. But Boise State has Ashton Genty on the team. We all know the name by now. He ran for 226 yards against Oregon State to help Boise State go undefeated in their conference this year. Yes, Boise State will be playing for a conference championship. Their conference championship game is going to be on Friday at 8 p.m., the Mountain West Championship between Boise State and UNLV. Now, I really desperately want to go over what the scenarios are, and if you win, are you hoping that somebody loses? There's a few teams that we already know they're going to be in, like the Big Ten Championship. You have number 4 Penn State playing number 1 Oregon. No matter who loses that game, they're not going to drop so low that they're out of the playoffs. Now, with the ACC championship game, it's a little different. You have number 12 Clemson and number 9 SMU are playing each other. The loser very well could get knocked out of the playoffs because they're going to lose their ranking, right? You have the Big 12 championship, which is going to knock out somebody because it's number 18 Iowa State and number 16 Iowa State. You would assume that the winner of that goes on to the playoffs. But then you have that Mountain West championship, that pesky Mountain West, where Boise State's an 11. And, well, going into last week, they were 11. Now, the new rankings have Boise State, at least the new AP rankings have Boise State at 10. Let's go through the AP rankings real quick because we can't really judge anything off of the AP rankings. They really haven't followed the college football playoff rankings all that much. But just so you know where we're at right now, Oregon, Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame, and Georgia are your top 5 in the AP top 20. Tennessee, Ohio State, SMU, Indiana, Boise State, Alabama, and Arizona round out your top 12. This is interesting now. Because you have 5 conference champions that automatically, no matter what, they automatically go to the college football playoff. It is the 5 highest ranked conference champions. So I'm going to use the rankings as they are for the AP to try to sort this out the best we can. I've done a little bit of sorting on this already. The AAC championship game is going to be one that could have an impact on who goes to the college football playoffs. I mean, Tulane, if they lose to Army's, according to the AP, number 25 right now. Who's to say, I don't know, if Iowa State wins and UNLV wins, and you might see Army back their way into these playoffs. And I don't disagree with it. They got 1 loss. Granted, it was a tough loss to Notre Dame. Some would classify it as a bad loss. 49-14 against the only real ranked team that they've played all year. But not only that, then they play Navy at the end of the year. It's going to be a mess. Just know that. I can't sort it out for you yet because we don't know what the College Football Playoff Committee has all of these teams ranked as, but I want to go over what these conference championships are, and we'll go over the ones that matter. You have the Mountain West Championship, number 22 UNLV, number 11 Boise State. The AAC Championship, which is between Tulane and Army, as I just noted. And then you have the Big 12 Championship. Now, the reason that the Big 12 Championship is going to be an interesting one is because neither of those teams are ranked in the top 10. The top 12. Now, because of that, somebody gets knocked out of the top 12 when they win the conference, because you have to automatically put them into the playoffs, and then that moves the cutoff line. Right now, in the AP rankings, Arizona State's number 12, Iowa State's number 16. So if Iowa State does win, Arizona State's out. Does that move South Carolina up 1? But it also moves Iowa State into the playoffs, which moves that cut. You see how I say that we really can't determine this until college football rankings come out tomorrow night? That's kind of where we're at right now. But it is fun to speculate. Now, one thing that we don't have to worry about is Notre Dame. They're not in a conference, right? So Notre Dame is just in because they're number 4 in the country, according to the AP Top 25. Now, are they actually the 4th best team in the country? Who knows? We talk about the human input on the rankings quite a bit. And, there's people that are like, no, if one team seems to be better than the other team, you should put the better team in that you think is the better team. I know a lot of word jumble there, but long story short, look at what happened last year with Florida State. Undefeated season, their quarterbacks get injured, and they get snubbed and get ranked number 5 by the College Football Playoff Committee. I don't know what's going to happen. Now, unfortunately, one team that isn't going to be playing for a conference championship is Colorado. They had a pretty good year, man, but that loss to Kansas really is going to come back to bite them on this one. I wouldn't say it's the Kansas State loss that did them in, because Kansas State is a good program and they're still within the top 25 rankings. But Kansas, man, you lose to Kansas late in the season. Kansas is a team below 500. They were 500 in the conference. That is a tough loss. And we could look back on it and say that's the reason that we didn't see Colorado in the college football playoffs. Remember last year when everybody was on the hype train with Colorado? They won like the first 3 games of the year, and then it all went downhill from there. Well, this year they're really a good team. They're 9-3, and you're not hearing the same chatter around them as you did. Now, obviously, you're going to hear the chatter around Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, a couple of Heisman candidates. The general consensus is that Travis Hunter will win the Heisman. I personally disagree. I think it should be Ashton Genty. He had one of the most incredible careers that a running back has ever had. And in an age where the running back isn't as valued as it once was, what he was able to do this year was incredible. I don't care who it was against, because you look at Colorado and who Colorado played. I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed. So I just take it at face value. And I really do think Ashton Genty should be the Heisman winner this year. 2,288 yards on the season with 28 rushing touchdowns. How does that not scream Heisman? We're going to go to our final commercial break of the day, ladies and gentlemen. I promise there's going to be more college football talk a little later in the week. I need those rankings. I need them. I'm fiending over them. And then we'll really be able to diagnose what'll happen if certain teams wins. And then it's just going to be, all hands on deck after that. So don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. NFL talk coming up after this. And welcome back to the Scoreboard, ladies and gentlemen. It is the final segment on this Monday. A reminder to you, we are not live in studio right now. This episode was recorded earlier in the day, so hopefully nothing crazy broke. I mean, I've been monitoring some of my news updates that I get, and I haven't seen anything come in while we're recording. But, knowing my luck, I'll finish this segment, and then all of a sudden something's going to happen in the NFL, and I'm not going to be able to talk about it till tomorrow night with you guys, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. Real quick, I feel like I didn't touch on it as much as I would have loved to. The game of Saturday, the game of college football, I should say, the game of the weekend for college football was easily, and this isn't like a debate at all, it was easily Georgia playing Georgia Tech. Was everybody tuned into that game? Because I was tuned in, and I thought it was one of the most entertaining games that I've watched in quite some time. One of my favorite things about the current mold of college sport, well, not college, but just sports in general, is this win probability metric. I don't know who thought that Georgia Tech would have a 98% chance to win, even though there was 5.5 minutes left in a 14-point game. I never thought that Georgia Tech was going to win that game in regulation. Even after their final touchdown in regulation to make it another 14-point game, I was like, oh, yeah, Georgia's going to somehow score quickly, get the ball back, and score again to send us to overtime. Well, that happened. They scored with 3.5 to go and a minute to go. And then we had one of the greatest overtimes I've ever seen. 8 overtimes that ended with Georgia winning, getting the 2-point conversion on a running play. A lot of passing play was going on during those dueling 2-point conversions. But Georgia was able to stuff it in, and they won against the Yellow Jackets. 44-42 is the final score in 8 overtimes. Man, what a game it was. What a game it was. I want to switch gears now and go into the NFL. Week 13 is just about complete. We still have Monday Night Football between the Browns and the Broncos, but what we can do is recap some of the Thursday, Friday, and Sunday games from this past weekend. A reminder, for the first time ever, there was football on Black Friday. It was the Raiders on the road taking on the Chiefs, and I'll tell you what, The Chiefs, they might be the luckiest team in the NFL. I mean, the Raiders are driving late in the game to try to get in field goal range, kick a field goal, and win the game by 1, right? That's what they're trying to do. The ball gets snapped when Aiden O'Connell is not looking. It falls to the ground, and it gets recovered by the defense. That's some lucky stuff right there. I don't know how else to put it. But man, the Chiefs are a lucky football team. Now, some of the other games from Sunday that I had my eye on, the Steelers and the Bengals was a really good game. My Bengals, they have no defense whatsoever. I saw a stat about the Bengals and comparing them to Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow threw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's done that multiple times this year. The Bengals have 4 losses when Joe Burrow throws for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. The rest of the NFL has 1 loss in games like that. Yeah, that Bengals defense is not the best. Definitely not the best. So the Steelers move on to a 9-win team. Do we have to start taking the Steelers seriously? I don't know what it is about that team. I can't take them seriously. And I'm getting vivid flashbacks to when they started the year 11-0. What was that? 4 years ago now they started 11-0? 3 or 4 years ago. They started 11-0. They lost, or they won 1 game for the remainder of the season after that, and then lost to the Browns in the first round of the playoffs. Now, obviously, the Steelers aren't going to lose to the Browns in the first round of the playoffs, but I don't know, man. I don't see them being a real competitive team. You look at the AFC, and it's pretty obvious who the real competition is, right? You have the Bills, who played Sunday night, and you have the Chiefs. In my opinion, those are the 2 teams to watch in the AFC. Other than that, it's just kind of, hey, who's going to get to lose to these teams? The Ravens dropping to 8-5 after losing to the Eagles. I know Lamar's great, but something about that team, I can't grasp it. I just don't trust them. Steelers, I don't trust them. The Texans, definitely don't trust them. And I wouldn't even consider the Chargers or the Broncos to be real competition for the playoffs. Now, coming off of this weekend, there are some teams that have been eliminated from the playoffs officially. In the AFC, the New England Patriots and the Las Vegas Raiders. Those 2 teams are eliminated from the playoffs. In the NFC, it is the New York Football Giants with a 2-10 record who are now eliminated from playoff contention. That's a bad football team right there. Some of the other games from the weekend, let's just kind of talk some more about these Sunday games. The Colts getting a win late against the Patriots was huge. The Vikings getting a late win against the Cardinals. The Texans holding off the Jaguars. There were a lot of good games this weekend. Probably the best one, and I don't know if we want to officially call it the best game of the weekend because there were some really good football games. The Carolina Panthers. They lose a game to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who now sit at 6-6. And not only that, with the Buccaneers at 6-6, they are now tied with the Falcons for the division lead. Something to keep in mind. I do think that the Buccaneers are going to win that division. But man, Bryce Young, he's looking better. He really is. And some of the throws that he was making, there's a lot of promise in that man. I'm telling you, he's getting his confidence back. Now, he didn't have the completion percentage, 26 of 46 for 298 yards, 1 touchdown, and no interceptions. I think that's the biggest takeaway no interceptions. And obviously they did have that one turnover on the fumble. Chuba Hubbard in overtime, pretty much resulting in a Buccaneers victory. Remember, in that overtime, the Panthers made a stop. Now, it was compounded by a missed field goal, but they still got the ball back with a chance to win. And unfortunately, the fumble took that away from them. Panthers now drop to 3 wins, 9 losses on the year with a not so favorable schedule the remainder of the season. Next weekend, they go on the road to face the Eagles. That's going to be a tough one. Then they have the Cowboys, the Cardinals, the Buccaneers, and the Falcons. There's a win, maybe 2, within those final games, but I wouldn't get my hopes up too high for anything crazy. And also, I wouldn't want anything crazy because at this point, you're looking at the draft pick saying, okay, how can we improve? Bryce Young, in my opinion, has bought himself some time as the starting quarterback. Some of the throws that he was making, man, I'm thinking about that one late in the game to Thielen where it was a back shoulder-ish throw where Thielen just reached out with the left paw and hauled it in. Obviously, we can talk all we want about the touchdown, no touchdown to Adam Thielen. I don't know. I mean, who knows? Was called incomplete on the field, so I guess you kind of got to stick with that because there really wasn't clear and concise evidence otherwise. But man, Bryce Young putting up a fight against the Buccaneers, actually having a lead late in that game. I thought they were going to win it for a little bit. I really did because they score the field or they score in the fourth quarter with about 2.5 to go in the game. It was just too much time for Baker Mayfield and company to march down the field, kick a field goal, and send it into overtime. But very promising stuff from the Panthers and Bryce Young this weekend. Let's get a little excited now, right? It's starting to look better than it has. They're starting to put competitive games together. That is very important because when you're just out of the game early, there's not much you can do to salvage it. And there's not much learning you can do because the backups go in and the competition's not as good and they're not trying as hard because it's a blowout. So staying in the game and getting that development in a close game, it's vital. And over the past couple of weeks, man, we've seen some really close games, even a few wins from the Panthers. So kudos to Carolina. Hopefully they can continue to build on that momentum. Let's real quick go over one thing that happened on this day in sports history as we wrap up this program. It was on this day in 1984 where Miami quarterback Dan Marino broke the then single-season touchdown pass record when he threw his 37th touchdown pass of the year in a loss to the Raiders. Dan Marino would finish with 48 touchdown passes that season. Thanks, everyone, for tuning into the Scoreboard today. Always great to talk to you. We got Monday Night Football coming up tonight. We got college basketball, regular NBA basketball, high school basketball is going on. We are going to lean into that in future episodes. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Until then, have a good night, everyone.